What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV, man. And tonight, my boy Nate Robinson got knocked out cold by YouTuber Jake Paul. He got stretched out. He got knocked out like Debo did Red on Friday, right? It's no secret. It's all over social media. It's trending on Twitter. Everybody talking about it on Facebook. Everybody posting it on Instagram. It's everywhere to see, right? And look, while everybody else is clowning him and turning him into a meme and turning him into a challenge, I'm not going to get down on him too bad because that's just not what Nate Robinson do. That's not what he do. He's not a boxer. It's not something that he does. However, he did step into that square circle. He stepped into that arena and challenged himself to fight a guy who had an amateur background from what I'm hearing. From what I'm hearing, Jake Paul is not just a YouTuber. He has some type of amateur boxing background and he had a boxing match before this, right? And I'm going to just say this. To a person, if a person has at least an amateur background, if they're fighting a person who's never had a real boxing match in their life, they bound to knock that person out for real because they have been trained technically to hit a guy and make it hurt, to hit a guy in the right space, in the right place, at the right time, and make them hurt severely. And that's what happened tonight, right? We all know Nate Robinson is not the biggest guy. He was at a height disadvantage. But what it came down to is Nate Robinson can't box. He's not a boxer. And Jake Paul got some boxing skill on him. He got some boxing skill on him for real. And you can see he has some type of amateur background. No doubt, right? And I want everybody to understand this. This is a lesson to some athletes. Just because you are great in your arena, in your professional endeavor, does not mean you can just hop into any other professional arena and dominate, right? Nate Robinson was a great athlete throughout his lifetime. Nate, I believe, ran track in high school. He started in both football and basketball in college at Washington, right? Probably could have went pro in football, but he got drafted in basketball, which is a great feat at his height of 5'9", right? Great talent. But I can tell he's never had a real fight, a real boxing match in his life. And I want to explain this to people. Just because you fought some dudes, you had some fights on the block, you fought some dudes in your bathroom at school and high school and so on and so forth, you fought some dudes in college, does not mean you're going to just step into a boxing arena and just knock dudes out and just you start welling on dudes. It doesn't work like that. Why? Because in boxing, you just using your knuckles, you using your fists. That's it. It's no grappling. It's no kicking. It's no pinching. It's no biting. It's not picking up somebody and throwing them across the room and slamming them and stuff like that. Because a lot of that happens in fights, which gives guys the advantage. Guys who really can't get that good of spacing when they're punching. Guys whose arms are not that long. If you can grab somebody and hold on to them and get some hits in or slam them, it gives them the advantage to win fights. That does not happen in boxing. In boxing, it's much harder to just use your fist to get a guy off of you and keep a guy from coming forward. It's much harder to just use your fist strictly. You know what I'm saying? Time and time again, it's harder to do that from the cardio aspect and the mental aspect of saying, damn, this dude is on my ass. I want to use something else besides my fist. I want to use a forearm, an elbow. It's hard to get in that arena and just do that. And I'm going to use the old boxing saying, the saying that all boxers use. You can't play boxing. It's not just something you just going to jump into and just be great at. It's going to take some time, some years of training to really, really be good and efficient at it, right? And I know Nate Robinson just tried to challenge himself. He took a shot, right? He did it. He challenged himself in front of the world, had the world watching. And unfortunately, he came up short. Not everybody is clowning him. And I know that that's just what happens on social media, in social media days that we living in today. But that ain't no fighter, man. He not no boxer. You know what I mean? And Jake Paul, from what I'm hearing, has an amateur background. He had a fight before this. So he been trained to hit a dude. And in boxing, all it takes is timing. Timing. You don't got to be the hardest hitting dude. You don't have to be the guy who throws a high volume of punches. All it takes for you to hit a dude in the right spot consecutively. Time him perfectly. You can hit him when he about to throw a punch and he don't see it coming and boom, they out cold, out flat. I've seen it happen time and time again in boxing, man. But Nate just he not no fighter, man. It's not a boxer. I'm sorry, he's not a boxer. He probably can fight and can scrap, but scrapping on the block and in the hood and in the street is not the same as just boxing, just knuckling up with your fist. All you can use to save you is your fist. That's much harder to do than what people think. I remember when Brandon Marshall was talking. Y'all know my boy B Marshall got the I Am Athlete podcast, which is absolutely dope. If you haven't seen Brandon Marshall's podcast, I Am Athlete with Fred Taylor, what's my boy name? Channing Crowder with Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson. Check that out. It's absolutely phenomenal, right? Wide receiver, Brandon Marshall used to play for the Bears, the Denver Broncos, Miami Dolphins, New York Jets, so on and so forth. Brandon Marshall was like, he can get in there, he can compete with the heavyweights in boxing. He can get in there with the likes of Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Luis Ortiz, and all the rest of those guys. And I want to tell Brandon, I'm sorry. I love you to death. You were a tough football player. Tough as hell, hard-nosed. But you need to sit your ass down somewhere before you get slaughtered out here. Just be like I'm telling people, just because it's going to take years and years of training for you to even be properly prepared, even mentally, to get into a ring with an animal like them dudes, man. Like, come on, Deontay Wilder and them will knock Brandon Marshall head off his shoulders. You know what I mean? And he's an athlete Brandon was a great receiver. Great. He just never made the playoffs because he wasn't fortunate enough to be on great teams, during the time when he had some great years, right? But he can't just step in there and fight no heavyweights like no nice, great heavyweights right now. He'd be in some trouble, like Bernie Mac said on the Players Club, right? But I'm like, yeah, it's the same situation, man. Nate he's not no boxer, man. And unfortunately, we saw it tonight. He got hit and he went down, man. He went down and went down hard too. I'm glad he's okay. He went on Instagram and told everybody he fine, he doing all right, he good, he gonna recover. But it's like, damn, man. Like when you have them type of moments, people gonna take the time to clown you out. You know what I mean? They're gonna take time to clown you out when you put yourself in a public setting for the world to be displayed across the world. Because let's be for real, everybody was watching this because of the main event. Nate Robinson and Jake Paul were on the undercard of Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. And I love both of those individuals. I love their careers. I love their boxing ability. I love watching those individuals fight. I love Roy Jones a little bit more than Mike, but I was enamored with Mike just like the rest of the world was, right? Although my favorite heavyweight over him is Evander Holyfield. That's just me. That man in the purple trunks was made of something different, right? Now, y'all can say, oh, it was steroids or whatever. Mike, I don't care what y'all say. Mike was on some steroids, too. All of them was on steroids back in the day. It wasn't no drug testing. None of them was clean at all, right? And Evander went out there and beat Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? But I love Mike Tyson, right? Their fight, it was cool. It was cool. It was a great moment. It was some great entertainment for people to watch. We in COVID, it's not much to do. People are still to this. Just shows you how much of an icon Mike Tyson is. The world is still enamored and they sit at the edge of their seat whenever Mike Tyson is just some highlights of Mike Tyson is playing. That's how dynamic, Kid Dynamite, that's how dynamic he was, right? And he still is this mythical figure. You know what I mean? Even beyond a Bo Jackson, he's this mythical figure that everybody just wants to see fight. Women that don't even watch boxing, they can't tell you who the welterweight champion is, can't tell you who the heavyweight champions are right now, can't tell you nobody in boxing, right? All they probably know is Floyd Mayweather. But they sit down and will watch Mike Tyson because they remember what Mike Tyson was. Their daddy told them about Mike Tyson. Their granddaddy told them about Mike Tyson. Their uncles told them about Mike Tyson. Their grandmama told them about Mike Tyson, right? So it was great to just have a legend like that in the ring to draw back viewership to the sport, especially during the time where UFC is getting a bulk of the attention in the combat arena, right? Roy Jones Jr. was phenomenal in his time. Roy was untouchable for years. This fight, it was decent. It was straight. I believe I said Mike Tyson was going to win, and I thought Mike Tyson was going to win by knockout. To me, I felt like Mike Tyson was holding back, pulling back a little bit during the match. He wasn't really trying to go for the gusto all the way, even though Roy gonna feel them rib shots in the morning, right? And Roy had his moments too. Roy was definitely a special fighter, but I said that Roy reflexes had left him a long time ago. He's not athletic anymore. Roy retired from boxing 2 years ago. So he's been more active as of lately, but we had seen Roy getting knocked out recently. That's why I picked Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson been chilling, doing his podcast, smoking weed, relaxing, getting in shape. His body was more fresher to me. He ain't been through a lot of wear and tear that Roy Jones had been through over the last couple of years, which is why I picked Mike. it was a draw, even though Mike really won that match. He won it, right? But it was ruled a draw. But I mean, hey, boxing won, man. Everybody wanted to just see Mike get back in the ring and see what he can do. Can Mike take on some of these heavyweight champions now? No. I don't want people to get too ahead of themselves. Mike, he looked good against a guy that's near his age. But, man, let me tell you something. Mike can still get snap on his punches, but we don't know how Mike will respond when he get hit by these big-ass heavyweights out here now. Mike 5'9", 5'9.5". Deontay Wilder 6'7", Tyson Fury 6'9". Anthony Joshua 6'6", and I know height doesn't mean anything, but these boys can crack. They can hit, right? These guys got weight on them and they can hit. And I don't know, Mike Tyson can't deal with getting hit like that. You know what I'm saying? He can't deal with getting hit like that at this age. What, Mike, 53 years old? He don't need to be getting hit like that. I believe they both, what they gonna take, they pocketed an M or whatever. Go ahead, get your bread, get your million, go back home, chill with your families, with your grandchildren, with your wives, relax. You know what I'm saying? Just enjoy yourself, right? Great, it was a great moment, right? Roy wasn't trying to get in there and mix it up with Mike at all. As I wouldn't have suggested him to do. Get on that bicycle, try to fight from the outside. Don't try to get in close quarters and bang with him, because that was going to be a night. It was going to be over with quick at that point, right? But nonetheless, man, good event, good entertainment. Somebody I know put on Facebook, he asked the question, who had the better career overall? To me, if you're going to ask me, I'm going to say Roy Jones Jr., right? Roy Jones was fun. Like, Mike Tyson he was phenomenal as well. He was just like something we had never seen before. The youngest heavyweight champion ever at 20 years old. But Roy, I believe Roy won his big fights. Roy won most of his big fights. Mike lost most of his big fights, right? And you can argue, and then Roy came up. He went to heavyweight. I mean, he beat John Ruiz, but still, coming all the way from what you call it to heavyweight, that's phenomenal, man. That's phenomenal to do that, man. But Roy Jones, so about Mike Tyson, everybody like, who had the better career, so on and so forth. Mike lost the big fights that he was in. A lot of the big fights he was in, he lost them, right? And you can argue, Mike was out of his prime, he went to jail. People always use this excuse. Mike went to jail and he was never the same after he went to jail. Listen, Mike became heavyweight champion of the world after he got out of jail. He strung together some nice wins. And he was looking like, people weren't saying he was washed up then. When he became champion again and he was winning, nobody was saying he was washed up then. When he fought Holyfield and he lost to Holyfield twice, that's when he became, prison did him bad. Prison didn't let him, it didn't retain him. He lost it all when he was in prison. He doesn't have the same skills. Prison messed them all up. No, that man in the purple trunks that was not going, that was not folding, that said, I'm here all night and I'm giving you all you can handle. That's why he lost. And don't give me that, Holyfield was headbutting. I love Mike, right? But a lot of Mike's fans, not fans, because I'm a Mike fan. Mike got some stands, I'm talking about some stands, how some people love somebody so much they see no faults or no flaws in them. It's kind of like how, and I love Tupac Shakur. A lot of Tupac hardcore fans don't see no flaws in him at all, even though there were a lot of flaws in him. Eminem fans don't see no flaws in him, even though there are flaws in him as well. Mike got a similar type of fan base. Nobody wants to believe that Mike lost, he just wasn't the better man. I believe Evander Holyfield had his number no matter what it was. No matter, they could have fought, they were scheduled to fight before he went to jail. It didn't happen, I believe, because Tyson had an injury. I believe Evander Holyfield would have beat him then. I believe that Evander was just a better fighter, overall fighter, than Mike. It is what it is. Mike hit harder than Evander. You know what I mean? Mike was more ferocious. He was more intimidating because Evander was people call him Evangelist Holyfield. He was just this really all-around nice guy. Came out to gospel music. He was just a God-fearing man to the core, all around, right? He wasn't a mean-spirited guy. And when he was in that ring, he whooped ass and he cracked heads. But Mike was just this mystical figure, right? And I believe that, so people don't want to give Holyfield that nod because Mike was just Mike was everything. He was the world known guy, right? It's the same reason why people picked Mike to win over Roy Jones Jr. I picked it based off of logical reasons. A lot of people just picked it because he's Mike Tyson. And they don't know who Roy, the casual fan has no idea who Roy Jones Jr. is, which is a shame because Roy is Hall of Fame and he is that man, that bad man. Roy was a badass dude. Y'all must have forgot. Some of y'all just don't know. But, you know, Mike is a more known guy. So they're going to go with the guy who's known. You know what I mean? People, your mama, your auntie, and your cousins, and your stepmama, your stepmama's sister, little cousin, daughter, she don't know who Roy Jones Jr. is, but she know who Mike Tyson is. Your grandmama, your great grandmama, your great auntie's cousins. You know what I'm saying? Your girlfriend, little sister that's 5 years old. She know who Mike Tyson is. You know what I mean? So everybody just gonna pick Mike and they just remember the knockouts. That's what it was. But yeah, man, Evander Holyfield was just a better man. I'm skipping all around. I believe Mike would have lost to Evander Holyfield no matter at what point of their careers they were in. As long as Evander was a heavyweight, I believe Evander would have beat Mike and given him problems, whether he went to jail or not. You know, Mike, people love to use that excuse. Mike went to jail. They believe that Mike was just never going to be beaten. But I just believe Evander Holyfield he's a better all-around fighter and he had his number. Some guys just got your number. That's what it is. Some guys got your number, man. That's what it is, man. Some guys just got you. Antonio Tarver had Roy Jones Jr. number. Roy was faded at that time, but he still had Roy Jones number, right? What's my man? Vernon Forrester Vernon Forrester. Vernon Forrest had Shane Mosley number. He had Sugar Shane Mosley number. That it is what it is, without no question. He just had his number, and he couldn't get past him. You know what I mean? It happens. Riddick Bowe had Evander Holyfield number, even though Evander won one fight out of those three, but Riddick Bowe had his number. It is what it is, and I believe Evander had Mike Tyson's number as well, man. But that's just it, man. I'm tired of talking. I've done enough talking. Machiavelli Mills TV. Thank y'all for rocking with me. Peace. I'm out.